This is a beautiful day, and thus far all's gone pretty well. What a life. I have 58 missions now. Guess you know I love you very much and miss you more all the time. Can't get my missions in fast enough. I keep thinking of you and all the things we'll do when we get together.
On April 21, 1945, at approximately 8:30, a fighter airplane was shot down in Bagnarola, Budrio, east of Bologna. The German soldiers were firing a machine gun from a dugout, and I saw the plane catching fire and then crashing to the ground.
The pilot on board was a young man from Iowa, a once farm boy who was also a poet, a performer, a storyteller, and a wilderness adventurer. His P-47 fighter plane crashed into the dark earth of an Italian field in the waning days of World War II. This is the story of Loren Hintz, with a life full of potential. It is the story of his family's search to find the missing plane and to bring closure to those who lived without a husband, a father, and a grandfather.
Well, we knew our father in the sense of my mom had a trunk, his military trunk, up in the attic, and it was with his uniforms, some of his poetry books. So we had this information in this box. I went up every so often to peek in that special footlocker, and I know my sister Gretchen probably did the same thing.
They were tangible signs of him as a young man. From the very earliest time, I remember the picture of my dad in his uniform in our living room, and every night we said, "God bless Daddy Loren," as we said our bedtime prayers.
His spirit was there. You open the trunk and there he'd be. And all that information was in that box, that trunk. And just to touch it and to know that he touched it and to know my mom had touched it and to know my sister and I. He was a prolific writer and his diaries were in there and the letters he wrote to my mom.
Loren Hintz was born on October 19, 1917, in Lake Park, Iowa. When he was 3, his parents, George and Eva Baum Hintz, moved to a farm outside of Charles City. Loren grows up in a loving household. Along with his 4 siblings, he leads an idyllic life on their 50 acres of rolling farmland. Although they live on little financial means, his parents do their best to support his interests and exploits. His mother loves poetry and instills in Loren a similar interest. When Loren is 18, he writes a 104-page autobiography, showing his early ability for creative writing.
My father and mother, I think, are quite different from many other parents in many ways. My father was always kind to us, and many times he would do things for us. He always gave his consent in any reasonable enterprise. My mother was hardworking and always interested in what we children were doing.
Before and after school, Loren helps on the farm, milking the cows and feeding the pigs. Exploring the woods, wilderness, and outdoors with his siblings. He and his brother George are especially close. In high school, Loren has a chance meeting with Howard Clark Brown, a poet, environmentalist, and a world traveler. Brown introduces Loren to a world far removed from rural Iowa, a world of Native American culture, dancing, poetry, painting, and a greater appreciation of the natural world. He describes Loren. Here is an artist, sensitive to beauty, color-loving, passionate. Here is a farm boy become a dreamer. The kind of boy who is not cut after a common pattern. Brown introduces Loren to the Woodcraft League of America, organized in 1902 by Ernest Thompson Seton, who co-founded the Boy Scouts of America. In 1930, Seton acquires acreage near Santa Fe, New Mexico, and creates Seton Village, offering outdoor youth education, leadership training, and annual summer camps. Loren's first trip to Seton Village with Brown and 2 friends is plagued by various car troubles as they travel 1,000 miles to South Dakota, Wyoming, Colorado, and finally reaching Seton Village on the old Santa Fe Trail.
He was determined to go to the Southwest with a bunch of buddies. This was well before interstates. They rambled off, slept in fields, barns. They helped farmers if they needed something to go. So he's determined to have a mission.
Seton is a prolific writer, naturalist, scientist, and artist, and also a great storyteller. Campers meet in his impressive library, where he often tells stories, including the story of Lobo the Wolf from his popular book, Wild Animals I Have Known.
When he tells a story, it is as if you were at hand where the events of which he's telling are taking place. When a wolf howls in the story, he howls. When a dog barks, he barks. When a bird gives a call, he calls. And when the wind sighs in the trees, he makes the noise of the wind.
For the next 3 summers, Loren studies and teaches here, taking a particular interest in the arts and culture of native peoples of the Southwest, and he's captivated by the natural beauty of the area.
I'm going back here, and we'll explore a bit of these mountains and camp and ride horses in these mountains, where nature still has the upper hand.
Loren's time at Seton Village and the woodcraft experience has a profound impact on his outlook on life. He develops a sincere and deep appreciation for Native American culture, and he blossoms creatively, staging programs as a storyteller throughout the country, acting in plays, and publishing a volume of 30 poems titled Youth Dreams, written under the pen name of Loren Baum, his mother's maiden name. One of his untitled poems from 1937.
So many questions are before me. So many things I want to know. All of life I want to live. The life of joy, sorrow, love, fame. I see visions. I have dreams. But the reaching, the restlessness, and the longing are still there.
Settling back in Iowa in 1939, Loren attends Mason City Junior College and begins working for the Works Progress Administration, WPA for short, one of President Franklin D. Roosevelt's signature New Deal programs employing millions during the Depression. It was here in April 1940 where Loren meets and falls in love with Gertrude Russell.
The night we met, I arrived in Marshalltown on a Tuesday. Met you at dinner Friday evening, had lunch together the next day. We had dinner together, went to the show, and afterwards had a Coke at some drugstore because I didn't know whether you drank beer or not.
Helen Gertrude Hintz, or Gert, or Gertie, as she is fondly called, was born in New Hampton, Iowa on May 20th, 1918. She is the youngest of the 6 children of Agnes Gertrude Larson Russell and Albert Martin Russell. Gert enjoys a typical Depression-era small-town childhood. After graduating in 1936 from New Hampton High School and then the Hamilton Business School in Mason City, Iowa, Gert works as a secretary for a business in Marshalltown, where she meets Loren.
From then on, Gertie, we ate together pretty steady. If you fell that first night, will you kindly tell me someday how you played the game so well and shanghaied me?
Before Pearl Harbor, Gert joins her older brothers who had re-established in California. There she works for the personal finance company. Around the same time, Loren enlists in the Army, beginning with 3 months of basic training at Camp Wallace in Texas. It is here where Loren's correspondence with Gert begins. Her letters bolster his sagging spirits.
Maybe you realize what a letter means in this hole. A letter from someone special. It makes the world right. Everyone is your pal. You laugh and joke. Nothing matters much, even the cussing of the sergeants. So you see, a letter is more than just words. It's everything. It's stepping for a few moments into another world.
Over the next 4 years, he writes more than 350 letters to her. None of Gert's letters to Loren survive.
December 19th. This should be the last letter from Camp Wallace. Where the next one will be from is hard to say. Gertie, the whole world narrows down to one thing, and God help the guy who tries to break it up. Last year, this war would have been an adventure just for my own satisfaction, but now it's for you. I want to live life and enjoy it to the utmost, but until we can get things settled and have a world at peace, how can I live at peace? They're wrecking the things I want most, and in my small way, I've got to help stop it. I'll be seeing you someday. Until then, keep laughing and try to wait. My love to you.
A troop train takes Loren from Camp Wallace to San Francisco. From there, a boat ride to Fort McDowell on Angel Island.
This is the gathering place for all troops to be sent out. Everyone is here. Infantry, Coast Artillery, Air Corps, engineers and officers of all kinds. This island isn't a training camp. It is made up of real soldiers, and all of them are waiting to be shipped somewhere. Since arriving, I have noticed the strange tenseness in the air. Men waiting to leave, some knowing when and others just waiting. I have noticed one thing. Men seem older. You don't see the faces of boys anymore.
On December 26th, 3 weeks after Pearl Harbor, Loren leaves for the Southwest Pacific.
It was a sad bunch of boys going under the Golden Gate Bridge. I felt bad too, and yet there was a feeling of excitement. The ocean was rough and rolled considerably. Believe me, it was a mess. 3/4 of the men were sick, and I mean sick. Imagine how we have to sleep. Each man has a bunk, but bunks are arranged in tiers of 4 end to end. Aisles are about 2.5 feet wide. There's 18 inches between my bunk and the one above me. January 4th. At last the trip ended, and the end was in, of all places, Hawaii. I always thought that someday I would come here, but not like I did.
Loren serves in Hawaii with the Coast Artillery, stationed at Camp Ulapau, near Honolulu.
It may be 1 year or 2 years, but there will be an end someday, and we can continue living where we left off. How about jotting down all the things we must see and do? Then, as we accomplish them, we'll check them off. Make a game out of it, and what a game it will be. I told you before how I felt, and I'm still ready to say it again anytime you want me to. And if it will make you happy, then I do promise to love you, honor you, here's the catch, obey you, to be duly legalized when I get back to the States.
While in Hawaii, Loren has an epiphany.
Jeepers, Gertie, I had a real thrill yesterday. I went for a ride in a real airplane for a change. Can't say what kind or where I went, but believe you me, it beat going up for 5 minutes or so in a civilian plane. This was sort of a test as to whether I'd really be any good as a pilot. Sort of looks as though I'm going to make it as far as physical performance is concerned. My stomach never got a hollow feeling when we dropped 5,000 feet and came swooping back towards the sun. Barrel rolls and loops were real sport and called for more. We played tag with a few clouds and went above them. That is a glorious world up there, and I could hardly wait till the time when I can go back and keep going back. You would like it too, I know you would. Someday, and maybe that day isn't so far off, I'll be where I belong, in a plane.
Many wanted to be pilots. They were considered the best and the brightest of the Army's elite, and the United States Army Air Forces enjoyed the pick of the finest recruits who scored the highest on classification tests. Even so, 1 in 4 recruits washed out early. It was a highly competitive, dangerous, and slow process to turn a recruit into a fighter pilot. Loren succeeds and is posted to Santa Ana Army Air Base in California to continue pilot training. The Army Air Forces share the news of his achievement with his mother. It is my hope that you will derive great satisfaction from your son's selection for pilot training and that his future career in the Army Air Forces will be one of continuing success and service. Loren gets a 9-day furlough and packs his bags for Los Angeles. He finally gets to see Gert after so much time apart.
Gertie and I met, stopped at a nice place at Wilshire and Western for a cozy spot in a dark room and a glass of beer. We talked and looked and talked some more. It was like a dream. I reckon I love her as much as I could love anyone.
On January 4th, Loren buys an engagement ring for $70.
I asked her if she would like something, and she was radiant all over when I handed her the box and she opened it. She said she wanted it more than anything else, and I slipped it on her finger. The deed was done, and Gertie is almost mine.
They celebrate, cracking a bottle of champagne. The next night, they go to the Palladium in Hollywood. Tommy Dorsey is playing. Dancing together after months of being so far apart, all of their dreams coming true. The 9-day furlough flies by, and Loren returns to Santa Ana to continue flight training.
Took my last test this morning, and it passed okay. We went up to 28,000 feet. Had to use oxygen from 18,000. Quite an experience. Coming down, you have to work your ears, such as swallowing, yawning, holding your nose and blowing to relieve the change in pressure. Now we have to wait for our classification.
On April 3, 1943, Loren and Gert marry at a small ceremony at the Estabrook Chapel on the Santa Ana Air Base. As the base newspaper reports, the chapel is charmingly decorated with white lilies and pink gladioli. Preceding the double ring service, the organist plays Schubert's Ave Maria. The attractive young bride wears a becoming powder blue frock with a chic white hat and white gloves. Private George Hintz Jr., brother of Cadet Loren Hintz, is his best man, both wearing dress uniform. The couple honeymoon at the Huntington Hotel in Pasadena. Due to the war, the hotel is closed for regular business and used for military purposes only. Soldiers are allowed to honeymoon there for $5 a night. Just 2 days later, Loren is back at Santa Ana Air Base.
This is rather a new kind of letter to write, as it does seem strange to be writing it to my wife instead of to a very dear friend. Just take a look at that date, will you, and recall what happened on the 3rd of April 1 month ago. Old married folks, that's what we are, with 5 whole nights to our credit.
Through the end of that year, Loren trains at the Air Force Training Detachment in Palo Alto, then primary pilot school at Chico Army Flying School in California, and finally, at Luke Field in Arizona.
Really sold on flying. Flying in the morning and ground school in the afternoon. I wouldn't trade this flying for anything, and it gets better as we go on. Wish you could be here. Would like to show you the ships we've been flying and the babies we're going to fly.
Loren graduates on December 5, 1943, and receives his silver wings as he is commissioned second lieutenant. As the year ends and with no leave in sight, Loren is frustrated, knowing he is missing a major family milestone.
December 29th. Don't think for 1 minute that I'm not thinking about you all the time and wondering how you are. Please have them telegraph me as soon as the action, as you put it, starts. Least I can do is pace the barracks floor while the show is going on, even though it is 1,900 miles away at Randolph Field in Texas.
Gert gives birth to their daughter, Gretchen, on January 6, 1944. That July, Loren attends his final phase of flight training in Pocatello, Idaho. Gert joins him there. They rent an apartment, and for the next 3 months, they live together as husband and wife, the only uninterrupted time they have together. In Pocatello, Loren begins advanced training for combat as a fighter pilot of a P-47 Thunderbolt. Nicknamed the Jug, it is the largest and heaviest single-seat American fighter ever built at that time, and one of the fastest fighters in World War II, reaching speeds of 450 miles per hour at 34,000 feet. The turbo supercharger engine consumes an astonishing 240 gallons of fuel per hour at maximum power. The P-47 is also the most heavily armed American fighter plane, sporting 8 50-caliber Browning machine guns with a combined rate of fire of 100 rounds per second, plus the capability to carry 2,500 pounds of rockets and bombs. Fully loaded, the P-47 weighs 8 tons. With speed, altitude, and range, it proves to be one of the best-performing fighters to see combat. Loren's first solo in a P-47 is on July 6, 1944. That flight results in a crash landing in a field due to engine failure. But that doesn't deter his enthusiasm, stating, "They really land nice." Loren walks away from the crash unharmed and is sent immediately back to flying status to resume his advanced fighter training.
Flew 4 hours this forenoon, finished up my cloud flying. Another fellow and I went up and flew formation right through them. Only have 30 minutes of instrument time to get in, and I'd have 120 hours on the chart. The news still good. All the 120-hour pilots will leave Sunday.
With Loren's training coming to an end and his next move uncertain, Gertie leaves Pocatello in early September to move back to Iowa.
Gosh, you've been gone less than 2 hours and I'm writing a letter already. Really, darling, I can't tell you how much your being here meant to me.
Once pilot training is over, Loren gets a 10-day leave and follows Gert back to Iowa. He's delighted to see his baby daughter again.
What a gal she is. Never cries and laughs a lot. Wondering when I'll see all of them again.
Loren's next assignment will be in an operational theater overseas. When he leaves, Gretchen is 9 months old, and Gertrude is pregnant with Martin, who is due in June. Loren is posted to the 12th Air Force to serve overseas with E-Flight of the 86th Fighter Squadron of the 79th Fighter Group. Loren's parents would now have 3 sons in service overseas. Loren's brother, George, is a ball turret gunner in a B-17 bomber flying out of England into enemy territory over German soil. Loren's youngest brother, Robin, a sergeant stationed in India, is a flight engineer on a C-46 cargo plane flying over the perilous Himalayan mountain range, known as the Hump. Loren's eldest brother, Harold, continues farming on the family farm. Loren's parents, retired from farming, had moved to California, where his father now works in the defense industry, building bombers. Loren set sail from Chesapeake Bay in October on the Liberty ship, the Joseph Warren. The trip across the Atlantic lasts 3 weeks. He reads, sits in the sun, and writes to Gertie every day. Loren met Bob Johnston while in pilot training. They are both assigned to the same squadron heading to Europe on the Liberty ship.
We took a Liberty ship, and it was a big convoy. We all were guessing, well, where are we going? We hope we aren't going to England, we thought, because there are already too many pilots over there. We want to go, but there's more action. We noticed after a week or two, it seemed to be getting warmer. You see, this was in October. And then we saw porpoises playing in the prow, the bow wash of the ship. And we then finally could see, must have been Gibraltar sort of way up ahead, and maybe no lights though. It was so calm, the Mediterranean, that you could see the reflection of stars in the water.
On November 7th, the ship sails through the Straits of Gibraltar. At Oran, they transfer to a French ship and land in Naples 2 days later.
Had a good time when I was in Naples. One day we went out and went through the ruins of Pompeii. It was quite a sight after hearing about them for so long.
Although Italy was allied with Germany since the start of the war in 1939, fighting on Italian soil only began the year before Loren's arrival, when the Allies invaded Sicily in July 1943. In September, after the Allies landed at Salerno, south of Naples, Eisenhower announced the armistice between the Allies and the Italians. The Allies predicted the war in Italy would end by autumn 1944. But bad weather and the heavy German defensive positions along the Gothic line keeps them from the goal of liberating the key city of Bologna. By the time Loren arrives, it is clear the Allies' chances of reaching northern Italy before the end of the year are remote. The 79th Fighter Group, nicknamed the Falcons, is made up of 16 P-47s flying out of Jesi's airstrip on the east coast of Italy. The squadron members live in tents enduring rustic, wet conditions that Loren describes as a mud hole.
December 4th, our first mission. This was the big day. Got briefed and took off at 8 a.m. It was a big show. On my way to combat at last. Little ground support, and from what I could see, there wasn't much left of the target. I didn't stick around to do much looking. Not when you can see little streaks of fire going by and black puffs of smoke about your head. Things really happened in a hurry. I'm going along fairly level, then over into a dive, and then darn near straight up, just weaving and turning all over the sky, and then I'm on my way home. Needless to say, it was an exciting few minutes, or should I say seconds.
The 79th Squadron perfects ground attacks against enemy supply lines, blowing up bridges, roads, and rail lines, as well as German gun positions. Flying in 4 to 12 ship formations, they come in below 800 feet over their targets, often with the rising sun behind them, releasing bombs at a point 200 yards before the target, all the while opening fire with a coordinated stream of tracer and armor-piercing rounds from their machine guns. These strafing missions destroy the network of German supply lines. After the uncomfortable conditions at Jesi, in December, Loren and some of his fellow pilots are thrilled to move into what they call the Castle, a beautiful coastal country house built into a mountain near Fano. The place was commandeered by the Allies from its civilian Italian owner. In the basement, elaborate passageways lead to various rooms that they convert into a club. Here, soldiers drink, party, sing, and try to forget about the stress of war.
Talk about a rough house. This was certainly it, and I do mean rough. They don't stop for nothing. Right now, 3 guys are out like lights in here, and only 1 belongs in this room. I made another mission, and it was far from dull. Really doesn't seem as though there's anyone below that might get hurt when I point the nose down and pull a little handle. January 4th. I celebrated the day by making my 10th mission. Got back safely, but I know some fellas on the other side who now know that the bolt carries a terrific wallop and probably hope they never see another. Just try to imagine how it must look to see a bolt coming straight at you with rockets, bombs, and 50s. January 22nd. Right out of the clear sky one night, my flight leader told me I was going to Rome on a rest leave with fellow pilots. Stayed in the Alexandra Hotel, one of the best in Rome. Rum and Coke every night. During the day, we went sightseeing. The Colosseum, the Square, Vatican City, where we met the Pope. He asked me where I came from and shook my hand and went on. I bought 3 rosaries. When he shook my hand, he blessed them.
They attend a symphony, the opera La Bohème, and a ballet, which Loren enjoys the most. Loren buys 2 little vases for his mother and trades cigarettes and soap for a doll for Gretchen.
Got in my 13th mission yesterday morning. Glad that is over with. Most of the pilots in the outfit call it the 12B mission and then jump right to 14.
Because the squadron is grounded by bad weather, by February 1st, Loren has flown only 15 missions.
Had to wait a long time before taking off, so many ahead of us. Finally did, and it was a sweat job. Engine sputtered several times on the way down the runway. Got off, and then I had a cockpit full of smoke. Also couldn't receive anyone except the tower. Went out to sea, jettisoned my bombs, and came in for a landing. Someday. February 20th. At last, a beautiful day. More missions. Shot up some barges and PT boats with rockets and 500-pounders. Went way into Austria. Got 5 trains. Got in a mission today. Makes 25. Took off with 1,000 pounds and hit a bridge just north of Padua. Wiped it out completely. We were shot at plenty today. Went after the Cassara rail diversion and got 5 direct hits. This makes my 40th mission.
In March 1945, the 79th Fighter Group moves north to an airstrip outside the small port town of Cesenatico. This was a once fashionable summer resort town on the Adriatic coast, but the war has taken its toll. For Allied troops, this is a desirable base. They have choice billets, the EM Club, complete with bar and dancing, and nightly movies on the wide, sandy beach.
Went to Cannes for a rest leave. Went to the beach. The women on the beaches certainly have the briefest suits I've ever seen. Can you guess what has happened, darling? Now you can brag a bit if you want, but today is a day to be remembered. Your husband is now a first lieutenant. The silver bar looks quite sharp, and I just wish you could have been with me to pin it on. I'm counting the time till we can be together again and really live life. And we'll live it, too. April 6th. Got another mission this morning. 1,000 pounds. What a target. A bridge at the foot of a 1,000-foot wall in a canyon.
Now, with more than 40 missions over Italy, Austria, Yugoslavia, and Germany, Loren wears a bronze battle star for the campaign of Northern Italy, as well as the Distinguished Unit Citation ribbon awarded to the 79th Fighter Group for their actions in North Africa and Sicily.
Dressed up this morning, and we all went over and had the air medals presented to us. It was quite all right, and I know the folks in Gertie will be very proud. April 9th. Big things started today at 1 o'clock. Big bombers flew over, and we were really giving Jerry hell. I got on the last mission of the day, and it was an exciting one.
Loren's squadron continues to support the 8th Army with the goal to liberate Bologna. All day long, heavy bombers fly overhead toward the front lines. All night, guns rumble, window panes rattle. The 24-hour-a-day offensive continues for days.
April 16th. Flew 2 missions today, which boosts my score. Last mission was near Bologna. April 19th. Flew a short mission this morning. Hit a ridge and really hit it out. Loafed in the sun all afternoon. Had a letter from Gertie and a letter from Mom. Startling news. George is interned in Switzerland. Guess he is safe, and he will be for the rest of the war.
Loren volunteers for as many missions as possible, as he desperately wants to get home by June for the birth of his second child.
April 18th, 1945. This is a beautiful day, and thus far all's gone pretty well. I've flown a mission and taken a sunbath and shower. Now I'm having a can of beer and writing you a letter. What a life. I have 58 missions now. So yesterday I had a chance to take a little trip, so I took the day off. I flew 8 missions in 7 days without a break, so I didn't feel badly about it. Does a fellow good to just have the day to roam around. Didn't know it before, but there is a little republic near here that has its own government and all. They are absolutely independent of Italy and have been since the year 300 AD. The place is called San Marino. I took plenty of pictures. The main town is located right on top of a mountain, and talk about steep sides. Not far from here is an old castle where Dante's Inferno was written. I want to go down there one of these days. Guess you know I love you very much and miss you more all the time. Can't get my missions in fast enough. I keep thinking of you and all the things we'll do when we get together. Wonder if you would send me a bottle of Vaseline hair tonic. Also, would you send me more Ritz and soda crackers? Thanks a million.
Loren volunteers for his 64th mission departing from Cesenatico Airfield early in the morning of April 21st, 1945. The air is hazy near the hamlet of Bagnarola, east of Bologna, when he goes in as the tail end of a section of 4 aircraft strafing and bombing enemy positions. He guides his P-47 in a deep dive, as he has done so many times before, reaching an elevation of about 800 feet. The low altitude he maintains, however, carries his fighter within range of German machine guns. A burst of anti-aircraft fire hits his ship. The other pilots recall seeing a gigantic explosion, but no plane. He is just 27 years old. Oh, God, I am glad that I am young, that I am free to go, to wander, to venture, to explore. My heart is young, and I see great visions. The whole earth is mine to do with as I please, and I step upon it with the lightness of one who is happy. It is wrong to be sad when we are young. Instead, we must sing, laugh, fight, dare to do the impossible. What matter if we make mistakes? Time covers all mistakes. It is youth that makes the world. Without youth, the earth would die. Let me live life while I am able. And when I change from the spring of youth to the first frost of age, and then to the white winter of old age, let me be able to say, I have lived, and I am not sorry. Loren's crash sows tragedy for an Italian family as well. The fiery P-47 sets ablaze the childhood home of Aristide Chiesa. Aristide proves a crucial source in finding the missing American pilot, 7 decades later.
Io ero ricoverato all'ospedale intanto con un'appendicite acute e nel frattempo c'era già i tedeschi che andavano via e gli americani e gli alleati che venivano avanti. A un certo punto qualche tedesco ha fatto saltare un carro armato in questa zona e allora l'aeronautica vostra è venuta fuori con gli aerei a esplorare tutta la zona.
A bomb from the airstrike set fire to Aristide's house. Suddenly, a burst of fire from a German armored vehicle hit his grandfather, and he fell to the ground. Aristide's father and grandmother were heading to the shelter when another burst of German gunfire hit the barn where they were.
E 5 minuti dopo è arrivata una cannonata tedesca, ha incendiato il fienile, che hanno dovuto scappare fuori, mio padre e la nonna, con il nonno là per terra distrutto a pezzi. A pezzi così, e allora ha incendiato la casa, è venuto fuori, ha messo la nonna al riparo e lui ha salvato un po' le mucche che le morivano davanti, con le granate, schegge eccetera, e così. Intanto arrivavano gli alleati, sono arrivati in cortile e da quel punto lì non si è più sentita nessuna cannonata perché era finito tutto. Allora mio padre e la nonna hanno preso un lenzuolo, hanno raccolto su i pezzi del nonno e l'hanno portato nell'altra casa perché qui non esisteva più niente. Questa è la storia. Triste.
Aristide saw the hole in the field from the plane crash. He remembers it wasn't a very big hole. He saw the Americans inspect the crash site and they found a few items, but nothing confirmed the pilot's identification. The hole was then filled in and the field was plowed and planted with crops. These intertwined tragedies occur on the cusp of ultimate victory. On that same morning, as Loren's P-47 falls from the sky, the Allied troops enter Bologna. The key city in northern Italy is finally liberated. A week later, Benito Mussolini is captured and executed. The next day, on April 29th, the German command in Italy signed the surrender. As the world rejoices on VE Day, back in Iowa, Gert receives an ominous letter.
the man came up to the front door with a note saying my dad was missing in action.
Their son Martin is born 3 weeks later.
He was missing in action for several months, and then they found some plane wreckage. My mom got that note, and there was always that hope that he was alive somewhere.
Gertrude later pens letters to the folks, Loren's parents.
The first thing that attracted me to Loren was his quiet good manners and his knowledge of better things. His ideals were lofty. Life held for him bigger things than the average young fellows aspired to. Please God, through some error in records, he'll be back. The children will have the benefit of his sound reasoning and guiding hand. If, however, it's God's will that he doesn't come back, I shall do all in my power to raise them the way he would have liked, and he will be to them a model to follow. It will be a big job to fulfill all the plans for the children we'd made together, but I thank God I have them. They're part of Loren and do help fill the awful void he left. It's almost 4 months since Loren went down. I still can't believe it's true. It's been so long now that I've about given up hope.
On July 20th, Gert receives a letter from the commanding general of the U.S. Army Air Forces. She also receives the news that Loren was awarded a Purple Heart. Gert places Loren's medals, dress uniform, letters, poems, and other memorabilia in a trunk, quietly grieves, and gets on with her life. In 1950, Gert is offered a job as secretary to the principal at the New Hampton, Iowa High School. She works in that position for 35 years.
When we were in our teenage years trying to figure out our path in life, Gert was the high school secretary in this little Iowa farm town. But she functioned as our guidance counselor, a feisty, no-nonsense, wry-humored advisor with expectations and standards. Gert Hintz became a legend in New Hampton, Iowa, and we miss her to this day.
Always fun-loving, Gert enjoys an occasional black velvet, complete with a cigarette. She dies in 2003 at the age of 85. She never remarries.
Loren Hintz is my grandfather. He was an Iowa farm boy, grew up during the Depression. As a young kid, not understanding, not having any appreciation for not only what Loren went through, but even for what the war was. To me, it was, a neat picture of a guy on a wall. He was a pilot. I was very interested in making model airplanes. For years then, the story kind of stayed like that.
All that changes with the advent of the internet.
In 2000, I just put it out there, hey, does anybody know who Loren E. Hintz was? First Lieutenant, 79th Fighter Group, 86th Fighter Squadron, killed in Italy. That post, as far as I know, pretty much faded into cyber oblivion until years later, fast forward to 2012.
Out of the blue, Hans receives an email from Piero Fabre.
Being somewhat sensitive to scams that are on the internet, I tepidly but rapidly replied to Piero.
Through web searches, Piero had Loren's name from a U.S. Army Air Force crew casualties list of crashes in the Bologna region. He then comes across Hans's post from 12 years earlier and cross-references Loren's name.
And call it trust, call it just a little poke of destiny, a little nudge from Loren saying, "Yeah, see where this takes you." I agreed to continue communicating with Piero.
Unbeknownst to Hans, Piero and his friends, Marie Bonfini, Stefano Geraldi, and Marco Gerato, all pilots who are also World War II enthusiasts, had been researching crash sites from the war, including Loren's.
Not only did Piero have the most noble of intentions, he certainly had a passion that was just too hard to avoid.
Got interested in this story because I'm a pilot, we are pilots, and we learned to fly in this sky, the same sky in which the war was in 1945. And I had news about some pilots losing their lives in this area, the same area in which I'd flown for 40 years for fun.
They spent hundreds of hours exploring the area from the air and ground, going door to door to interview locals, and narrowing the potential location of Loren's crash site to this map.
And so that map, cryptic as it is something that I have racked my brain over for years, Piero doing the same.
In the summer of 2012, Hans, his wife Riva, and their oldest son Gus traveled to Italy to work with Piero and his associates, tracking leads and exploring the story. It was on this trip that Hans realizes that a search for the crash site could become a reality, and that finding Loren was possible.
A great break came when Piero and his crew came across a woman, Teresa, who, back in the war, was sort of the first thing as close to an eyewitness as we had.
Dunque, durante la guerra si stava bene perché ero giovane, quindi l'ho vissuta con allegria.
Teresa Bisonin was Piero's first contact in Bagnarola and helped point out potential locations of crashed airplanes and to gain the trust of the people in the area. Teresa introduced Piero to Antonio Zucchelli, also known as Tonino.
Non è come nei film che uno muore e poi dopo ritorna a fare un altro film. Ha! That's good!
Tonino and the other children were afraid of explosives disguised as everyday objects. That even when American soldiers offered chocolate, they insisted the GI take the first bite to ensure it wasn't a booby trap.
Il rumore degli aeroplani.
Tonino remembers the day of the crash. His family had built a shelter covered with branches and earth. Though he didn't see Loren's plane get shot down, Tonino witnessed the squadron's airstrike on April 21st that set the Chiesa home and barn on fire. Teresa also introduced Piero to Marquis Luigi Malvezzi at his family estate in Bagnarola.
When I met him for the first time, it was to ask permission to work in his fields, to look for the airplane pointed in the map. Io ho imparato di questa vicenda un giorno che si è presentato Piero. He played a key role in helping us to reconstruct the story and to gain the confidence of the nearby residents to talk about the story, to reconstruct step by step every inch of the story.
When Piero was able to let Malvezzi know that there was this grandson with family being very strong in Italy, he on that alone allowed us to come visit his estate. And that's where a shift occurred for me. Malvezzi spent about 3 hours on a beautiful summer afternoon and into an evening walking us around his estate. It's quite a large palatial compound. And one of the first things that started to change my perspective was when we pulled up and there was an incredibly large definitive Red Cross, internationally known as a place of refuge, a place to not be attacked. And so suddenly the lens from which I had been viewing the experience up until this point changed entirely. His family in that estate actually was attacked by American flying forces, P-47s from the 79th Fighter Group. And one of the things that even further changed my perspective was Malvesi pointing up to the house itself, showing where there had been stucco repair, made it real and vivid. Coming around the back side was some overgrown trees. When Malvesi walked up and sort of touched the wall, he did it in a way where there was something more there that I could tell. This was a place that had significant meaning to his family. It was a place where Germans had been holed up, and unfortunately it had been a chapel.
Intorno al 17 di aprile c'è stato il bombardamento aereo che una bomba è caduta lì dentro, lì in mezzo a quel prato, e una seconda è caduta dall'altra parte tirando giù.
A third bomb hit the chapel, causing a wall to collapse, suffocating 43 people, including locals, nuns, and children who were seeking refuge there.
With the chapel taking a direct hit from a bomb that, undoubtedly was dropped by an American airplane, possibly Loren. When you're a fighter bomber pilot, your job is to destroy things. And for us to see the reverence that Malvesi had for that place really made me feel like a twerp. Here I am, this, American coming over. Yeah, I want to find out about my grandpa. I think he was this great guy. He got shot down and killed. But to see the effects of what the Americans were doing had a tremendous impact, and it instantly caused me to really question what I was doing. I just offered an apology for that. And Malvesi, having had a lot of time to think about this, said it was the war. He at least wasn't resenting me specifically or the Americans. That's when the human element broadened considerably. And that's, in my strong opinion, what really Finding Loren is all about. It's much more about a discovery of the good parts about what it is to be a human being, the human spirit, and the unfortunate things that occur when true evil penetrates into various elements of society and at times takes full grip on the world.
Over the next 4 years, Hans and Piero stay in contact, tracking leads and assembling experts in search for Loren. Eric Trueblood of Air Corps Aviation in Bemidji, Minnesota, proves a vital source as the technical advisor. As a restoration specialist of P-47 Thunderbolts, he provides expert guidance and background for the project. After years of requests, the team obtains a copy of Loren's individual deceased personnel file from the National Archives, which provides valuable key information. It includes a translated statement from the one eyewitness, who, in 1945, led the Air Force investigators to the crash site before it is filled in and lost to history for 75 years. Closing in on the location of the crash site, Archaeology dell'Area, a non-profit organization made up of volunteers who search for planes shot down during World War II, is brought in to arrange for a geophysical scan. The radar scan indicates a large metal object approximately 10 feet below ground. Piero also discovers unspent .50 caliber ammo casings in the shallow surface soils and small fragments of aluminum, all pointing to this being the location of Loren's crash. after 4 years of investigation, research, planning, and having strong evidence of the exact crash site, members of the Hintz and Ronca families meet in Italy for the excavation of Loren's plane.
This is the guy we need it.
Yeah, the farmer may not be too keen on you driving it here.
Yeah, well, he's gonna have 350 people here in 2 days.
On a train.
Hey guys!
Never having worked on an airplane.
Yeah, holy shit.
Hans.
If it is a 45.
Assuming it's American, it could be a 9mm, a German 9mm.
Yes, also. We have to clean it.
And how many women were, to go back into their lives?
Is that just a case?
Well, that's something.
Yeah, but
Heavy. Still has some. Hold on, let me see the back. He was shot.
It's a 50 caliber shell.
I mean, people
There were
aren't
8 50 caliber guns on the P-47.
is that a 50 cal?
This stuff has probably been pushed back and forth around.
From the farm
Yeah,
all
exactly.
the years, and that's why it's all dinged up.
This is a physical specimen, but it still by no means is conclusive.
Right.
But tanks aren't made of riveted aluminum.
Yeah.
We're gonna find more than a 1945 vintage aircraft here.
More?
I mean, you can find nails from the medieval period.
Hey, you found another one? I found it.
You could find shell fragments from World War I.
What do you think?
Amazing. Like, this could be part of his plane. And it's just, to touch it and to hold it, it's just really something. And to think what might be, what might have been, is, and all the help that everybody spent to get this, and to get this far, and to find this, is just really overpowering.
I would say that you're going to find.
So we'll see what's going to happen. Part of the excitement, the thrill, and the what ifs. That's part of life and death and all that. So. Circle of life and death. Thanks.
Yeah, and you know that's the crazy part of it.
Daddy, can I use that tool?
So often.
There's a lot of like metal.
I woke up in a 500-year-old farmhouse this morning hearing roosters crow, and literally had to pinch myself. I couldn't believe that I was here.
Today is the day we are going to dig the hole in to try to find the main wreck of what is left of the P-47.
I am excited. I'm a little unsure how things are going to play out in terms of the emotions that I might have. Is there really even an airplane here? There's still some element of unknown yet to be discovered. The element of surprise, not unlike the element of surprise that an attacking airplane would use when they're trying to complete their mission.
It's crazy. A farm field in Italy, almost exactly like Iowa, or is where he's from.
When we first came here 2 or 3 days ago, I got really worked up, in a sense, inside. And now I'm interested to see where the rest of the journey is, and if somebody is there or something is there, then we'll see what happens. But right now we're waiting for the Italian time to get started.
Because we have been told by the witness of the time that nobody came here after the war, since today. So everything is still buried underground as it was 70 years ago.
It's an incredible amount of activity happening right now. The archaeologists from the Aviation Association, you can see they're out scanning the fields in preparation for the excavation. The archaeologist who found this told me that this appeared to him to be indicative of a razorback type piece of glass being flat, knowing that the panel's on a razorback. It's not a rounded bubble top canopy. A little too soon to...
Yeah, it's hard to say when you find a part like that could have come, you know, in the 70 years, but the material thickness is, you know, similar to what you would find on like a canopy side window.
And what's incredible is this is just stuff that was scattered in the near surface soils, so we can get a sense for how much material there quite likely might be here at the site.
I mean, every part that's sitting in here is an aircraft part.
There's some melted aluminum. Yes. There's some kind of fire.
The end of the case right off his right knee. It's pointing. It's like basically kind of vertical.
Oh, yeah.
Like if that's a machine gun, that's the back of it.
Occhio alla testa,
You see the shell still in the gun? It's probably the best find in the first 15 minutes because it, you know, that would corroborate all the 12 years of research into finding the site. I mean, it's the best case scenario. Just amazing if that actually was on the pilot that actually survived a war, and you got a 10-pound steel part that doesn't, when something as fragile as a hair comb does. Mind-boggling. Gus found this part with a part number in it, and so we were able to, on our technical library, pull that drawing up and be able to see that exact technical drawing, which identified it as the lever assembly for the tailwheel uplock. And it's neat to be able to tie the resource being coming out of the ground with the area of the airplane. I guess I would say that we're getting probably into the heart of some of the bigger chunks. So you're starting to see things come out with wires and cables and fittings and bolts attached to them. So I think as they get deeper, you'll probably start to see some larger components come out.
So this is the flare gun. This is a classic signaling device that could be used if a pilot was down and needed to signal.
Because they had to have everything, didn't they? Just to be fair. At the moment, we have only fragment bits, machine gun, a cylinder, and that means that we are getting close to the main mass of the wreck.
They think they may have found the motor. Or they're working around something big.
As far as I know, they're more or less standing on top of the engine. And what they're trying to do is excavate around it. And the other challenge they're having is they're at the water table, so the soil becomes much less stable. And it's a dangerous thing to have soil, a sidewall of soil collapse if someone's in the excavation. It could crush somebody almost instantly.
I think they're trying to figure out if the excavator can handle the weight of the engine case. It's deep. It's probably 10 feet deep and wet, heavy clay, which adds a bunch of weight to the scoop as well. So they're trying to rig a strap, but they can't get under it. And so it's going to be magic or tragic.
It's a mixed feeling. I am very happy for the family, and I'm happy for me because it's my first recovery and possibly the last. It will never happen again, I think.
It seems like with the engine coming out, you know that you're getting near the fuselage, and they don't know what potentially is in there, but they've been taking really good care. Just there's a feeling of excitement, but a little anxiety as well, because if there's still some remains in there, obviously it changes the feel of the day.
They have a box. They have a box in case there's remains. They have a funeral box. I don't think I want this on video.
Let's go put this in. So you want to put it in the box?
Fabio.
We need the archaeologist.
We should look through this pile.
Okay. Be careful. There's
human remains.
Well, we don't know. The black. Don't mistake some of the wood for.
We'll find a piece of
Oh, that's fun. Okay.
That's right.
Well,
okay.
We're finding Loren.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Wow.
Oh my God.
You have to see.
Impressionante.
Oh my God. It's the name.
Oh, no.
C'è guarda, qui.
No.
No,
Just come through.
Fatela, laviamola dai subito così almeno si toglie tutti. Figlio, eccolo.
But to have this in my hand and know that he wore this, you know, it was just, you know, it kind of makes me tremble a little bit. Part of the honor. Wow. Amazing. Totally amazing. A real wonderful shock.
The amazing proof that this was the site that Hans and Piero have been looking for so long, and all the Italian archaeologists. We are grateful for them.
And what isn't remarkable about just about everything that's happening here, but I would consider that to be a feeling of pure astonishment.
This is the most exciting day one could ever imagine, and it's like somebody is smiling, and I think everybody probably knows who it is, my father and my mother. So to be here today is just it's a wonderful experience. It brings everything to life.
I touched the bones of my father, hard, unbreakable and fearless. They still talk to me in long phrases, but not long enough because he is gone.
A Fox 24 News special report tonight.
The story of finding Loren is picked up by the media around the globe.
Right now, from Milwaukee.
Plus, a young father and Air Corps pilot disappeared during the final battles of World War II.
Un pilota americano della Seconda Guerra Mondiale abbattuto sopra Bologna.
There is still one more step in the proof-positive identity of Loren: a DNA sample. The bone fragments and dog tags are given to the U.S. NATO base at Camp Ederle at Vicenza, then shipped to Ramstein Air Base in Germany, and then sent to Dover Air Force Base in Delaware, where they specialize in DNA-assisted identification. Martin and Gretchen provide DNA samples. The DNA matches prove conclusively that the pilot's remains found in the field in Italy are those of Loren. Once confirmed, Gretchen and Martin approached the American Battle Monuments Commission with the idea of having the remains interred in the Florence American Cemetery.
This is a one-of-a-kind for ABMC to have a partial burial here at the cemetery for one of our service members that died during World War II. Our cemeteries are closed cemeteries, meaning the service members that are buried in our cemeteries were interred here during the war or right after the end of the war. Since 1951, this will be the first time that we have a burial in our cemetery.
After 2 years of planning, in November 2019, 40 of Loren's descendants and friends meet in Italy for the memorial service and military burial at the ABMC Florence American Cemetery.
I thank everybody here. There's a mortuary affairs crew. They came out and they drove out last night, 12-hour drive, to bring Loren here.
We drove from Germany through Switzerland, France, and into Italy. The ride, it was a solemn ride. At no point was he ever left alone. We've got one of the warmest welcomes I can say I've ever experienced in my military career. It does take you back because we don't always get to see that closure, and being brought in and felt like we were part of something bigger than we even realized. Given the honor and the privilege to escort someone, any fallen service member from any time period, it's one of the most solemn and probably most honorable things you can do. You get to give the family that closure, and not only that, but you're personally taking them home.
Loren's last letter home, he asked if his loved ones could please send some more Ritz crackers as a symbol. We'd like to give him some Ritz crackers to enjoy in eternity.
Hi.
You want a cracker in honor of Grandpa? Everybody does.
What Loren fought for was a better world, a more human world, a world of freedom and dignity, a world where creativity was really a possibility for all. And that's a beautiful and powerful vision, and that must be kept alive.
Questa è la conclusione di tanti anni di un'avventura che ha cambiato il corso della mia vita completamente. È una cosa che credo che nella vita di un uomo capiti una sola volta. E oggi è il giorno conclusivo.
È un'emozione grande, grande che nessuno potrà mai misurarla, perché vedere voi qui con l'ospitalità che ci avete dato al vostro paese e l'unione che si è creata fra di noi, per me è il massimo, l'emozione più grande che possa avere. Grazie infinite.
In 1945, our mother, Gertrude Russell Hentz, decided to have Loren's remains buried in the American Battle Monuments Commission, Florence American Cemetery. This peaceful place, carved out of farmland tilled for centuries, is a fitting burial location for this American farm boy. Lieutenant Hentz's B-47 fighter plane with more of his remains rested for decades under the soil outside the village of Bagnarola until our retrieval mission in 2016. With the help of innumerable Italian and American friends, we are finally laying him to rest.
And standing in front of these tablets of the missing, looking out at the 4,000 plus graves is totally humbling. Today our family reminds us all to remember these courageous men and women who offered up their ultimate sacrifice. We recognize that each of these soldiers also left a story, a family, a legacy. During World War II, an anonymous flyer wrote the following: "Along the pillared streets of cloud, the wide, unsealing skies across, we sweep on slim, swift wings and pass among the stars, no stain of blood. For borrowed is our flight, and earth reclaims from all the skies her dead." Goodbye, Dad.
His eyes look back at me from the mirror, twice as blue but his all clear. Growing up when you paid the cost, I'm not half the man my daddy was. I'm not half the man my daddy was. We all have our cross to bear. I got mine, the kids got theirs. But this right if only just half the man my daddy was. I'm not half the man my daddy was.
Today, we remember Loren Hintz falling with this plane a few kilometers from here, just the last few hours before the end of the war in this area. And we want also to remember, symbolically, all those American boys for our freedom have given their lives. And we, that are the children of that freedom, paid with the blood of those young people, we can and we must remember their sacrifice. We can and must do every day that we live in peace two things. Never forget, with only one word: thanks.